Good afternoon, everybody. It is Thursday, February 26th. Welcome to the Transportation and Environment Committee. We are continuing to take up items in the Capital Improvements Program for FY 27 to 32. Last week, we reviewed the transportation categories of the CIP, and today we are reviewing the environmental side, which includes WSSC water, recycling and resource management, stormwater management, and storm drains. But first in the queue is our partners with WSSC. Welcome. I know there's a lot going on, as there always is, but let me first turn it over to Mr. Levchenko to walk us through.
Yes, so your first item today is the FY 27 through 32 WSSC Water CIP. It actually came over quite a while ago, back in late September. You had your spending affordability discussions with WSSC Water around that time. Then since then, they published their preliminary operating budget in January, and then have since had their commission review and approve transmittal of the proposed operating budget, as well as a mid-cycle update affecting the CIP. That came over a little bit too late for it to be included in this packet. Not a big set of issues in there, but we will make sure we get that through the council at a later date. But so this package is based off the original proposed CIP going forward. And just a couple quick numbers, and then I'd like to turn it over to WSSC to provide a good summary overview of their CIP. The 6-year program, including the formal CIP as well as what we call information-only projects, which are mostly bond-funded but are not technically CIP by definition, is about $4.83 billion. Those revenues are not directly associated with Montgomery County's revenues per se. This is not part of the overall spending affordability discussion you have with county government projects and with schools and parks and college. They have their own bonding authority, their own federal and state aid revenue stream, and their SDC, or System Development Charge Fund, for paying for growth. So while they're a bi-county agency and we are part of that, their budget is fiscally separate from the rest of the county CIP that you're dealing with. The CIP itself represents a slight decrease from the 26 through 31 approved, but there's so many puts and takes in it that I don't want to draw any broad conclusions from that. There are 57 projects, and there are a handful of new projects in the CIP, but most of what you're seeing, the vast majority of the spending is in ongoing projects, and we'll get into that. WSSC will talk about those major projects in a minute. Several large projects that had placeholder funding in them have been significantly adjusted, including one project, the I-270-495 Improvements Project, which had associated water and sewer infrastructure, which was assumed to be fully funded outside of WSSC's local resources, but with state funding, is not reflected in the current CIP at this time. So that represents a decrease in the CIP, although not an impact on their bonds or current revenue. Meanwhile, you also have some adjustments in their master planning project as they start to move items into actual projects. We have increases in their lead reduction effort and their PFAS management, as well as in the number of the Blue Plains projects coming courtesy of DC Water's CIP. So a lot of movement back and forth. What I would like to do, I think, is start with WSSC Water to provide their summary of it, and then we can get into questions from that, as well as any other budgetary issues I've raised in the packet.
Fantastic. If you want to put up the slide decks, I'll turn it over to Ms. Powell. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair Glass and Council Members Stewart and Balcom. Thank you. It's good to be here always to present before you, and this is very timely given the discussions about infrastructure investments that are taking place. I'm just going to get started and then turn it over to the team to go through the details. I'm sure you'll have questions. If we could go to the first slide. And while we're going to that slide, I just want to recognize and acknowledge Commissioner Foster is here as well in the audience. And Commissioner Seltzer. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. I want to thank them for being here to support us today. We have focused on, if you could go to the next slide, Sunil. The commission has really been focused on kind of boiling down our vision, actually, and that is to focus on sustained and transformative change in 4 pillars, including our infrastructure and the service, as well as innovation and technology and workforce in the workplace. And I think all of those work together. We believe that the capital improvement program that WSSC Water has proposed is our biggest lever for reliability and resilience, investing in the infrastructure. And that really is the way that we're able to deliver service aside from our workforce. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Letitia to get into the details of the proposed capital improvement program. Thank you.
Good afternoon. For the record, Letitia Carolina Powell. So our 6-year FY27 to FY32 CIP is
If you could speak into your mic a little.
Okay.
There we go. Thanks.
All right. Our 6-year CIP is $4.83 billion, and $1.6 billion, or 33% of that, is related to mandated projects such as Blue Plains, sewer reconstruction, consent decrees, and other required regulatory mandates and agreements. The FY27 capital budget is $759 million, and the mandated projects make up about 36%, or $288 million of the budget. So the FY27 capital budget is $43.8 million more than that of FY26. We have the same mix of funding sources for the capital budget, with bonds still making up the primary funding source, although there was an increase or a decrease rather of $31.6 million from the FY26 levels down to $493 million. State grants and loans increased by $89.75 million to $133 million, and PAYGO, the third largest category, is at $97.9 million, an increase of $4.9 million from FY26. For the 6-year CIP, there is an overall decrease of $46.4 million from the $4.878 billion for fiscal years 26 through 31 down to $4.831 billion for fiscal years 27 to 32, and the changes by funding source are summarized below the table on the right. Our FY27 capital priorities are to invest in the water distribution and water collection programs, upgrade the water storage facility rehabilitation program and water resource recovery facilities to drive operational cost savings, continuing to make funds available for regulatory compliance, such as the lead and copper reduction projects and PFAS, and to modernize our meter infrastructure and continue master and facilities planning and infrastructure investments. This slide illustrates how the 6-year 27 to 32 CIP and the FY27 capital budget are allocated between the 8 CIP categories. The 6-year CIP is represented by the blue bars and the FY27 capital budget by the green bars. Here we have the year-over-year comparison of the 8 CIP categories, with the FY26 budget being the green bars and the FY27 budget the blue bars. You can see the change in the mix of projects in FY27 with increases in innovation and investment priorities. interjurisdictional agreements, wastewater collection, and general facilities from the FY26 levels. The breakdown of the FY27 capital budget by implementer is presented in this slide. WSSC implemented projects represent 83%, or $628.7 million. Interjurisdictional are 14%, or $104 million, and developer projects 3%, or $26.3 million. We are expecting increases to interjurisdictional budget as a result of activity from DC Water, and this will have to be absorbed in the existing FY27 budget. The component breakdown is as follows. Informational projects account for 57%, or $430 million. By-county projects, 28%, or $213.9 million. There are $92.4 million in water and sewer projects located in Prince George's County and $22.4 million in Montgomery County. This slide and the next have tables of the funding allocation by major component by each year of the 6-year CIP. The project detail was included in the preliminary proposed capital improvement budget book that was published back in August. And now I will turn it over to our chief engineer.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Glass, Commissioner Stewart, Commissioner Balcom. For the record, my name is Alan Wong. I'm the Chief Engineer. So we're here to highlight some of the major projects that we've budgeted for this coming fiscal year. And the master planning is going to set the stage for future CIPs for 10 years down the road. And so we're into the first year of our master planning process. And what follows after master planning are individual facility plans. And that's where we get the detail in terms of the cost and schedule for our new projects that will be included in our CIP. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So these are the 8 categories of our capital improvement program. And what we're focusing on in the coming years has been consistent with our past investments, but the distribution of those funds are going to vary from year to year. We're going to see a major increase in wastewater collection investment, and we're going to see a slight decrease in water distribution. The water side of the program has been optimized, and we're going to be spending less on the water program. So this shows the Prince George's County service area, and it highlights some of the major projects that you'll see in the tables that Letitia referenced in terms of budget. This is Montgomery County, and again, this just gives a snapshot in terms of the geographic distribution of our programs. In particular, on the water distribution side, we are looking to upgrade our system because of the age and the service levels, and we're also looking at providing more technology so we can monitor and operate the distribution system more effectively going into the future. Next slide, please. This is an example of one of the water distribution projects, and this is a technique that's typical, open cut, and you can see there would be major issues and concerns that we have to take into consideration in terms of the impact to the neighborhoods. Next slide, please. Again, you can see a healthy list of projects in Prince George's County. Next slide, please. And again, you can see the different types of projects that we have. It's not a uniform. It's quite diverse, and so we have a major in the master planning program, we're going to look at that distribution and identify the areas that have to be focused on as far as criticality and risk to the system. Next slide, please. I mentioned wastewater collection, and we are working very hard to reduce the amount of inflow and groundwater infiltration into our system. That requires obviously treating more wastewater, which increases our operating costs, and it also creates impacts to our customers in terms of potential basement flooding issues. So this is a major focus, and the funding for this coming year has been increased. Next slide, please. We also have some growth drivers in part of our service area. So we do have a segment of our budget that's earmarked for supporting growth. One of the things we're doing is working closely with each county, and we want to understand what the vision is in terms of economic development and growth, and be in sync with their needs and support those needs. Next slide, please. This is just a few specific examples, and I think one of the projects that is significant is the Anacostia 2 wastewater pump station upgrade. And this is one of the key elements in our Anacostia system that we need to keep in sound operating condition and plan for additional service requirements. Next slide, please. I mentioned the benefits and impacts to the community, and we are, for every project that goes to our commissioners for approval, we provide a community impact assessment and a community support plan, and we do that for every single project. Next slide, please. The Potomac water facility water treatment plant, the Potomac system, has been under a consent decree. It's winding down. I know there were some questions in the last meeting about budget being earmarked for the rest of this year and a bit for the next fiscal year, but essentially the program is complete. We just have some wrap-up activities, which we have put some budget in the budget for. Next slide, please. On water treatment and storage, one of the challenges that we're having is again dealing with the distribution system, the areas that have had some issues with water quality, taste, and odor. And so we're looking at adjusting those networks and providing more capability for providing circulation in the system so that the age of the water does not sit in those locations as long as it has been. But we've been moving on that program, and we're going to make some more headway next year. Next slide, please. Our water resource recovery facility is one of a few in the nation that is recycling methane gas and producing pipeline quality natural gas. And so we are working on our financial plan that takes advantage of that product that we will be receiving revenues for over the life of our program. I think the current budget in terms of revenues is probably approaching $1 million. So it's a major source of revenue based on this technology that we have at this facility. Next slide, please. Mixed use engineering support. This is really to focus on the support of our workforce. We're doing upskilling and training, and we want to make sure that our workforce has the right facilities, the best facilities to support their day-to-day needs. Next slide, please. And here's another example on the larger facilities, the Anacostia Depot reconfiguration, the current headquarters building where we are now. We're also looking at some major planning and renovation activities. Next slide, please. We have facilities across our region that support the operations, like our depots, and we have vehicles, we have equipment, we have a distribution network for our spare parts and our equipment. And again, this is something that our general services program focuses on. Innovation and investment, you've heard the term PFAS and the lead service program. And again, these are regulatory drivers, and we're watching the developments in terms of that legislation so that we can make sure that we will be compliant. On the other hand, some of the compliant deadlines are 3, 4, 5 years in advance. So we want to pace our investment in this area, but it's very important that we continue to invest. The general manager mentioned DC Blue Plains. This is one of our major interjurisdictional agreements, and I think as you have been reading in the papers recently and listening to the concerns of the public, there's some major impacts in terms of our budget because of the facilities that DC Water owns and operates. But we also are a partner with DC Water and the other local agencies, so we're committed to work to make just to deal with the issue and help in any way we can. Next slide, please. Are there any questions?
Thank you for that. That concludes the official presentation. Fantastic. I'm flipping through my printed pages here because the monitor wasn't working, but very much appreciate all of that slide deck information and the perspective, right? Because every year we have a conversation about what the status is of our water system, but I think more relevant to the point of this conversation, we also talk about what needs fixing, which is the purpose of the CIP. So, General Manager Powell, could you provide an update as to what the needs of the system are today, especially given the fact that we just experienced the longest cold spell in modern history here in Washington, D.C., with sustained freezing temperatures for at least 2 weeks, and I'm sure it did a number on the sewer system.
Yes, well, mostly our drinking water system.
The water system,
but
sorry, yes.
I'll get to the sewer system in a moment. You jumped ahead of me. But just to, I would say, capture the needs in a nutshell, we are always focused on water main breaks, and generally that's usually what you see this time of year. We had a significant number of water main breaks, and the number is not stuck in my head, but it's over 1,000 water main breaks that we've had to deal with this winter season. Certainly, Winter Storm Fern had a significant impact not only on the water distribution system, where we see the water main breaks, but also our water treatment plants. We've got to make sure that we're keeping the water coming into the plant to treat it. Another impact there is to the power system. So, we have had periods of time where we've been down to one feeder at the Potomac plant and some of our pump stations. So we're working with our electrical service providers to make sure that they are prioritizing the repair, getting things up and running. But it's a clear indication that there's an opportunity for us to work together to make sure that we have reliability there where our power systems are concerned. We have prioritized in the CIP and actually projects that are moving this fiscal year, as we talked about, to upgrade electrical power systems at our facilities. And you may remember my first year here, we talked about just this a large amount of work in our water distribution line or bucket, but very little in facilities. And so over the past 2 years, we've been working to rebaseline the CIP, reprioritize things, and I think that work was very timely because now we are starting to catch up on facilities related work as well as the collection system. So that brings me to wastewater collection. We have our own system that we operate and manage. We have, I believe it's 5,500 miles of sewer. That includes residential sewers, trunk sewers, force mains, and then we have the pump stations. And of course, we have our water resource recovery facilities that we increased funding in. But the collection system itself, We are increasing there. We have funding from MDE, so we'll be able to move those projects. We just shared with our commissioners at the last commission meeting. You could the number of projects that they have approved over the last 3 fiscal years has significantly increased. So we are getting a lot more work out on the street, and we're doing better at delivering our projects. Where the larger diameter sewers are concerned, we have been focused on those trunk sewers. We have ourselves a large diameter sewer that we're moving forward right now. That's the 102-inch Anacostia gravity sewer main. We're also working with, we will be working with DC Water to ensure that the force main on the other side of the Anacostia 2 pump station, which is in the plan, is also reliable. There's work that needs to be done there. There was a collapse on that main this past summer. And the teams work together to get through that process. Just turning to the Potomac Interceptor and what's happening now, if you look at that last slide, just to call out in specifics, the and this is all in answer to your priorities, it's really everything. We've got to invest. We're seeing infrastructure failures are not only happening in one area, not just water main breaks. But on that last slide, the funding that is under Blue Plains interjurisdictional agreement covers work that needs to happen at the Blue Plains wastewater treatment plant, as well as it says shared pipes and facilities outside of the plant. That is pointing to the linear infrastructure outside of the plant, like the Potomac Interceptor, but there are other multi-jurisdictional use pipelines that DC Water owns and manages that we have a share in the costs. In this particular situation with the break that is experienced now, it's completely outside of the district. And so those costs, I had a briefing from DC Water on February 3rd, and they shared the updated costs for that work with us. But suffice it to say that would, DC Water does not have a share in those costs. That is largely between WSSC Water, with a sub-allocation to Rockville, City of Rockville, and then Fairfax County. So the range for repair of that particular section is $95 million to $135 million for the planned project. But of course, you see that there's going to be additional costs from this emergency, the emergency repair and the mitigation. So we'll be asking for clarity on the costs here shortly.
Thank you for that full answer, right? Two follow-ups to that. With regard to the cold snap that we just experienced, if you could follow up with us and share with us the number of breaks or problems that occurred there.
Will do.
And with those instances, is there funding currently in the CIP for those immediate repairs, or is some of that built into this CIP because they're just larger in scope?
There is funding built in. For this year, we are doing water main reconstruction and replacement projects under fiscal year 26. We also have funding included for fiscal year 27 as well. We've also put in requests for funding from the state to help supplement our funds for this year and next year. And we've also just, the Water Resources Development Act is under U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Congress. They work on that funding mechanism every 2 years. We just provided a request for additional funds or for funds under that funding mechanism as well.
Okay. Very helpful to understand how you apportion those funds. And the last question I have right now, you mentioned the Potomac Interceptor, and we have fielded lots of questions from the public trying to understand the interjurisdictional nature of this sewer line break, recognizing that it is in Montgomery County, it runs through Montgomery County, but it is not in our jurisdiction, or it is not part of your portfolio, WSSC's. So can you just share with the public a little bit more about what that relationship is and isn't? And as you just noted, there might be some interjurisdictional cost to repair it.
Yes. So the Potomac Interceptor carries sewage flow from as far as Dulles. It comes across the river into Maryland, and it picks up sewage flows, wastewater flows from our service area. So while DC Water owns and manages that infrastructure physically, and it physically sits in our service area, it is providing a service to our customers. And under a long-standing intermunicipal agreement with DC Water and others, including Montgomery County, which is a party to the agreement, there are cost share allocations that are determined for different segments of that infrastructure. And because this is outside of the District of Columbia, the cost share allocation is borne by the jurisdictions that are outside and being served directly by that infrastructure. We actually have a 30-inch sewer that flows into that Potomac Interceptor upstream of the break, and we have, I think it's a 15-inch sewer that flows into the Potomac Interceptor right downstream from the break, not far downstream from the break. So you can think of it as a highway. We have the on-ramps to the highway, and it continues flowing down to the Blue Plains plant for treatment.
Very helpful. And the last part of that is with regard to the budget and the cost. The cost sharing that WSSC will incur, is that part of, or will that be part of this CIP?
It is. The planned projects that we were given costs for, we've now been notified through a briefing, not formally, that those costs will be increased. And again, the cost for the repair and mitigation that is happening now, we expect to receive hopefully some formal information about what the costs will be. There's been a round number provided of $20 million, but we expect to have a more detailed conversation with DC Water and the other partners in the intermunicipal agreement to discuss those costs, as well as how things are being handled. At the end of the day, for this particular segment that we're talking about, and there are two other projects along the Potomac Interceptor that we have been advised of, we would have a 30.9% share in the cost of that work. And again, part of our share would be suballocated to the city of Rockville.
Interesting. Very informative. Thank you. Thank you for those details. Colleagues? Both being deferential. I love the committee. Yeah. Councilor Bowden.
Thank you. Just one question about the interceptor. So the cost of repair, does that include the cost of testing and services to the community? I know that there's just a lot of anxiety, and I'm sure you're fielding way more than we're fielding. So there's a cost associated with that community outreach or community resolution. So are we picking up that cost, or is that a shared cost, or everyone just eats that cost?
So based on the agreement that is in place, it contemplates paying all costs associated with any work to the municipal the shared facilities, I will say. There's a longer term, but the shared infrastructure. However, we do need to understand what that means and, what costs are being incurred. And so, again, I'll be requesting those details so that we can provide better information to you and other stakeholders as well.
Great, thanks, I appreciate that. And then the only other question I have is, there's the balance between ratepayers and the work that needs to be done. And we know that there is more work that you can be doing or would like to be doing. And I just want to talk about that for a little bit. Are there things that you would like to do that you're not going to be able to do? And how significant are those? I just want to make sure that we're not investing where we should be.
Right. Thank you for that question, because I do believe it is a balance. We have to be realistic, and this is why we went through that rebaselining process to prioritize other needs as well. I think, when you look at the history of our CIP, since around the 2010 timeframe, the investments in water distribution went way up. And I believe that was probably because River Road tipped the scales there. And so there was a recognition that we need to invest more in water mains, and we're having all these breaks. We're still having a lot of breaks. And we're trying to increase our level of service so that we're not having as many breaks. But, Chief Engineer Wong has been working with the team to reprioritize and optimize the water system. We took our foot off the gas a little bit going into this next fiscal year because we do need to get other things in. And we're being mindful of the financial limitations we have, or the financial frame we have. So we can't just keep increasing the number to get other needs in. We've got to figure out how to plan differently and kind of restructure the CIP. As given the risks that we're seeing and what can happen, we can't invest fast enough. It's always a concern, but at the same time, we have to be realistic about what we can deliver. And one of the conversations that we have been having with our commissioners, or that our commissioners have been having with us for the last 3 years, is what does the project delivery look like? We can't ask for any more than we can do realistically. We've got to deliver it. And so that slide where you see the implementers, that's a new terminology that the team has put in there, because we have to be clear about what is under our control to deliver. And Mr. Wong did a presentation at our commission meeting, last commission meeting, where he showed if you shave off the things that we're not responsible for actually delivering, but it's in our budget, we are doing very well in terms of meeting our monthly expenditure rate. We are trying to get ramped up at the beginning of the fiscal year a bit better so that we can sustain that, and making sure we have contracts in place that allow us to do that. Mm-hmm. But there is that realism to balance affordability with what we can deliver and what actually needs to get done as soon as possible. So you'll see us bringing forward a lot more critical infrastructure. All of it's critical, but large diameter pipelines, pump stations, the facilities, and the master planning and facilities planning is designed to help us get at what is absolutely critical and help us prioritize that much better, I think.
Okay. Thank you. And I know that we've had this conversation now for 4 years now for Kate and I, much longer for the chair. We want to make sure that those critical issues, that we're aware of those, just so if there comes a time when we must invest, that we're aware of that, it doesn't come as a surprise, and that the community knows that the cost that will be incurred is a necessary cost.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
Thank you.
That.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
Great, thank you. I want to say thank you for this presentation. Excellent, and just wanted to note the projects in the Viva White Oak area. This council has been doing a lot of investment in that area, and we're glad to see WSSC investing in infrastructure there. I want to take us back to the Fran, our winter storm, and everything. And I do want to thank you. I'd like to do a shout out to your incredible team, Brandon Stewart, who is just excellent customer service and outreach. Being someone who lived blocks from a number of breaks this winter, I have to say that the messaging, the communication, and the fact that I feel like seemed like fewer people actually lost access to water, but your teams were on it right away and really appreciated that. One of the questions I had with all the water main breaks we did see, and I know we were, and I'll get the nomenclature wrong here, requested people like the emergency use of water to only use. Can you estimate how much that actually did help you all? Like, do you have any way of kind of judging like how well the public did in being a partner in that? Because, we had it in place for quite a few days. And again, just wondering, did that help in terms of as you all were dealing with the water main breaks and everything?
I would say it helped hugely. And actually, I recall asking our communications director to put in the communications thank you for what you are doing. It's an inconvenience. We know that we still get questions about it. Many folks don't understand. However, that is really the only lever we can pull to buy time, is to take demand off of the system when we're not able to get our tanks filled quickly. And so there was a period of time which we knew was coming, that which is why we had the briefing in advance, and we know that everybody was in briefings, so not everybody could attend, but it was to remind that we may need to call for this measure because we are going to see an increase in water main breaks after the snow event. So, the snow event was one thing, snowcrete, but it was that after effect of the temperatures dropping and then the water main breaks, the number of water main breaks increasing. And when you're losing that much water from the system, and in a lot of cases, it took us longer to find them because of the snowcrete. But when you have things out there, it's draining the system. We're not able to fill the tanks and satisfy the demand, the water demand in the system at the same time. So we were able to see the numbers shift. Our control center operations is watching those numbers very closely. They're monitoring all of the tanks in the system, and we can see how it's working. So we, again, appreciate our customers, even if you didn't understand it, we appreciate our customers really adhering to that request.
Great. Well, and I think as Councilmember Backlund said, communicating with folks about how this is a shared endeavor that we're all part of here, to make sure that we're maintaining our infrastructure. And when we're seeing those situations, I do think a number of people, it was a bit confusing, I will say. We got a lot of questions in our office, but that tells me people were paying attention and wanted to be helpful. So I think that was excellent. One of the other things in terms of infrastructure that I did notice during the storm, and I don't know if it was, again, unique to my district and area, but there seemed to be other, sometimes complications with other utilities, whether that was Washington Gas or others. Are you seeing an increase or any concerns there when we're having these water main breaks or infrastructure issues? Also, there's other utilities involved, and what are the challenges there with that?
I particularly when there's water main breaks, if there are gas mains, but one of the significant challenges the crews reported was waiting for Miss Utility to do markings. They would come and do the markings on the snow, and then snow's gone, and they have to come back out and mark again. So just I think they were able to work with partners, agencies to say, okay, we've got communicating a little better, to say we've got markings out here. We've been waiting for them to come, and by the time the crew mobilizes, they may end up having to wait again. So that was a primary issue. But anytime there are utilities very close by, and we do have those areas where utilities are kind of right very close to each other, that makes it challenging for them to get in. The work goes a little slower, especially when we're dealing with gas mains. But I would say that the sister utilities have been extremely collaborative, both boots on the ground and leadership. We've been able to talk through and make sure we're a priority.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you to my colleagues. General Manager Powell, thank you and your team for the presentation. And in a few weeks, 2 months or so, when we come back to talk about the CIP before the full council, would love an update on how your system fared during this winter storm. Hopefully it is past us and warmer weather only ahead, but appreciate everything that you all continue doing to keep our drinking water safe and clean. So thank you.
Thank you for the support. Thank you.
Mr. Olchenko?
Just a few points. Ms. Powell mentioned recalibrating, rebasing the CIP. I did want to emphasize that even with all that, they're still spending over $1 billion in the 6-year period on water and sewer reconstruction work. And that's because we have thousands of miles of those smaller lines. And you heard about the 63 miles on the sewer side. That's a very high number. Thankful to the state for helping boost the funding there. On the water side, we have had a significant investment in that, as you heard, over the past 10 to 15 years. And we have not had the large breaks that we experienced 10 or 15 years ago, partly because of some enhanced technologies. Acoustic fiber optic monitoring will capture weakening pipes before they burst. So on the large diameter side, we had not seen the kind of breaks. The kind of breaks you're hearing about now are smaller diameter neighborhood pipes. And that's just part of the deal of living in the mid-Atlantic with our weather. The fluctuations in the weather are going to cause that, in addition to maybe the aging infrastructure as well. But on the water side, we did see a ramp up of the miles being done there. You can think if you have over 5,000 miles of small water mains or water lines, if you're looking at a 100-year life cycle, then that's 50 miles a year. We've never quite gotten up steady to the 50 miles. They're recommending 35 miles this year. But as you heard, they're doing a lot of other optimization. And we did do a lot of catch-up work over the last decade. So I think we're okay for now. But that is an area we're going to have to look at again going forward, given just the sheer volume of work, whether that 35 miles is sustainable in the long term. And of course, as you heard, there's lots of other priorities for the money. But that's one area we may need to look at. And I did suggest after budget some areas that we will want to revisit. The metering infrastructure, we haven't talked a lot about that today, although the council has talked about it at length in the past, and all the advantages of moving forward with advanced metering infrastructure, the near real-time analysis of usage and potential breaks that identifies, the ability to have the readings done that way rather than having to have manual readings, so you can go to monthly billing. So there's all sorts of benefits to that. The other thing, of course, is the meter inventory itself is quite old. It's aging. I think a year or two ago, I think the average meter was about 17 years old. I'm sure it's gotten a little bit older since then. And so they need to be replaced regardless of the technology, but to benefit from the new technology will be, I think, a nice co-benefit. I think you heard that there is a pilot project going on now with both in Montgomery and Prince George's counties, where they've enlisted a number of volunteer residential properties as well as the school system in both counties to roll out some advanced metering infrastructure to see how it works and how those benefits play out. So one of my suggestions is that we follow up on that as they get further along in that pilot effort. The other thing to remember with meter replacement, old meters tend to underread. So when meters are replaced, customers may see a bump in their bill. They won't see it as that they've been subsidized for the last 5 years. They'll see that they have an increase. So it is something to keep in mind when if and when a mass rollout of meters does take place. Expect more billing questions as their meters are actually more accurately reading water usage. The other areas that I think we want to get updates on after budget include the lead reduction program. That's moving forward, and also the PFAS management program, which it's a bit more in sort of a study stage at this point, but we will want to hear more about that. And then, as I mentioned, the linear infrastructure. On the sewer side, of course, the Potomac Interceptor just sort of highlights that issue, but that's an ongoing issue for us, is just what should be our goals 5-10 years out in terms of, or what can we expect to need to spend for a reasonable life cycle refreshment program for that work. We don't obviously have time to get into that during the budget, but I think those are key areas after budget and still significant drivers of the CIP.
Appreciate you raising those issues so that we can take them up at an appropriate time, but all of them are things that we've been talking about, particularly the metering for years, and so to get an update on that would be important, but and appreciate you raising that and putting that in the packet as well. So without any objection, committee will approve the recommended CIP for WSSC. Okay, thank you. From WSSC, we'll move over to DEP and talk about the next item on the agenda, which is recycling and resource management, with a total 6-year CIP of $38.4 million.
Yeah, just to set the stage here, as you mentioned, it's a $38.4 million 6-year CIP. There is one new project recommended, Shady Grove Processing Facility improvements. Although in much of that, it's work that was typically scheduled periodically in the operating budget. They're recommending that it had to have more of a systemic, long-term set of plans for that on the CIP side. And then you also have 4 ongoing projects that don't have much change in cost or scope. That includes the full upgrade of the existing recycling center complex, which is still in design, the Goody landfill remediation project, which is nearing completion, the new organics processing facility, which was approved, I believe, last year, but is pending the outcome of our discussions on the long-term disposal of waste. And then the Oaks landfill leachate pretreatment plant retrofitting, that was a newer project that's also moving forward. But I did want to note what's not in here. Last year, the council approved some short-term improvements to the resource recovery facility. That was done in the context of the operating budget. It doesn't show up in the CIP, and we'll expect to have more discussion of that in the upcoming operating budget. And also any of the work that you've heard the executive is doing on the long-term disposal planning, That's not showing up in the CIP yet either. We do expect to hear soon from the executive on that piece as well. But I'll let our DEP folks introduce themselves and also provide some highlights on the CIP that you have before you today.
Indeed. We know that this is just the starting point for an engaging conversation that will ensue over the next number of months, especially once the county executive introduces his operating budget in a few weeks from now. But before we get ahead of ourselves there, Director Macedonia, welcome. There you go. I think this is your first time officially before us.
It is. Thank you so much, Chair Glass. It's wonderful to be with you. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today about the capital improvement projects, specifically at the RRM. And I think you know many of my staff here. I'll start, as you mentioned, I'm Jennifer Macedonia, the Director of the Department of Environmental Protection, and ask my staff to introduce themselves as well.
Good afternoon, Jeff Seltzer, Deputy Director.
Kaylee Lalaker, I'm Chief of the Zero Waste Programs Division.
I'm Jamie Foster. I'm the Chief of the Planning, Design, Construction, and Monitoring Section. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as mentioned, we're here to talk about 4 ongoing projects that are recommended with no changes in cost or scope. The first is the upgrade of the existing recycling center complex. The second is the Goody landfill remediation project. The third is a new organics processing facility that would combine with the yard trim facility. And lastly, leachate pretreatment work at the Oaks landfill, which has been decommissioned. With that, do you want to go forward with questions, or would you like me to walk through in more detail?
If you would like to walk through the various projects and provide us some status updates.
Absolutely. So why don't we start with the full upgrade to the recycling center complex. So we are looking to maintain, renovate, upgrade equipment at the Shady Grove transfer station. So this includes work to the scale house, administrative building, power infrastructure, and the fire detection and suppression systems. This will be $11 million in spending spread across a 6-year period, with expenditures continued after that. And we can discuss any questions you might have on the planned work in the short term. As mentioned, we'll also be talking about work through the operating budget in a separate discussion.
If you want to just keep going, and then we'll pick it up at the end.
Sure. So in addition, at the same physical location, we have the materials recovery facility, which is our existing recycling center complex. And we're looking to substantially increase the processing capacity of the facility from 80 tons per day to between 200 and 240 tons per day. That's going to require some minor modifications to the existing building to increase storage for incoming as well as the baled material that's gone through the process. And the source of funds for this is the Solid Waste Disposal Fund for planning, design, and supervision work, as well as construction and equipment costs, which we covered under revenue bonds. The next project that I mentioned is the Goody landfill remediation project. This is planning and construction of a toupee cap, which is a cap on the top area of the closed Goody landfill. And this will help to remediate low-level environmental contamination. You might recall that the Maryland Department of Environment entered into a consent decree involving landfill assessment and remediation at this site. And this project will work to eliminate and mitigate water getting into the site and leading to groundwater contamination. The next project is the Oaks landfill leachate pretreatment plant retrofitting project. This will involve installation of new and upgraded leachate pretreatment equipment at the closed Oaks landfill site, which is in Laytonsville, Maryland. The county is required to provide post-closure care and maintenance of the landfill facilities and equipment following the Oaks landfill post-closure plan that was established by the Maryland Department of Environment. And the next project is the new organics processing facility that was mentioned. And this would allow conversion of the existing yard trim facility to accept food scraps and composting of food scraps. Planning and design would be funded through Solid Waste Disposal Fund. And I think with that, we can turn it back to you.
Okay. Thank you for walking us through that. I know there are going to be a number of questions from all of us, and so I'll just get started with the upgrades to the recycling center. Very exciting to see a potential quadrupling in capacity from 80 tons to 200 or 240 tons. Can you talk us a little bit, talk with us a little bit more about what that capacity means? Will we be able to incorporate newer types of plastic? And I see in that the PDF, it also says that facility will better enable us to go to single stream instead of the dual stream that we've had for a number of decades now. So can you expand upon this a little bit
Just
more?
real quick on that. The part of the capacity issue was that during peak times, DEP is having to send the recycled material out to a facility. I don't know if it's still in York, Pennsylvania, but they were sending substantial amounts because they were not able to meet the capacity needs of the facility. So part of the upgraded facility will allow them to deal on site with the volumes that are coming in. So that's part of it. The interest in single stream isn't so much that the county might change from dual stream to single stream, because the dual stream does provide a better recycling product, and the county does have some pretty good markets in place for its mixed paper in particular. But other jurisdictions like the city of Rockville do single stream. So potentially if there was a means to process it, it might help accommodate, for instance, the city of Rockville. But I know they've had further design work since that was discussed. I don't know where that stands or if that's really feasible at this point. But I don't think the intent was for the county to change its processing.
And that was the question, so thank you.
Yeah, just to speak to that further. So it's a good thing that our residents are doing a great job recycling. And so, again, we're seeing increased volumes of recyclables coming in. And I'm going to turn to Jamie in case there was anything to elaborate on that question.
For the record, my name is Jamie Foster. I am the project manager for these upgrades projects. So for the MRF, we're currently in the 60% basis of design phase. We're working now with equipment vendors to try to figure out what type of specifications we need for the new equipment for the MRF. Once we get those specifications, then we'll move forward. Part of the design is to allow there to be capacity for increased equipment needs in the event that we do change from dual stream to single stream to accommodate other jurisdictions in Montgomery County.
You know, so I think it would be good to help assist some of the municipalities that need that. It would beg the question that if we are then capable of doing single stream, why not convert and find other cost savings potentially in other parts of waste management? Has that been considered?
So one thing to note there, which I think Keith also mentioned, we are actually receiving a premium right now, particularly for our paper recycling, because it is separated. So the work that our residents and businesses are already doing to separate the paper from the waste stream is allowing us to receive a premium. I think we wouldn't want to give that up because it's a really valuable part of our recycling program.
Agree with you on that. And then other question I have, just shifting from the recycling facility to the organic processing, which I know Councilmember Balcom will get to. The sticking point, as you noted, is that this can only move forward when a date certain has been set for closing the incinerator, which begs the question: what happens to the $13 million here? Should it not be able to move forward for whatever reason?
Hi, Rich Harris, Office of Management and Budget. That money is, the placeholder is in there as an assumption that it would be at that location. Ideally, that's where it would be, but it's not tied to yard trim. If that's not available, the money can be used to pursue a site in another location.
I ask because, getting ahead of ourselves here, this will not be approved. The CIP will be approved as we go through the operating budget, which will provide us more insight as to what happened with the incinerator. But the link there is inextractable, right? And so just trying to figure out what moving parts might be if late in the process or if in the next fiscal year it is unable to move forward for reasons we all might be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, budgetarily, it's funded out of the Solid Waste Disposal Fund. So as those dollars are not spent, the fund stays whole. And to the degree it gets repurposed, perhaps for another site, or if it moves ahead but later, it can be adjusted budgetarily. It does not have an impact on the rest of the CIP, which is helpful.
That's the answer I was looking for, whether or not that could be shifted to other areas of the CIP that need it. And we know there's a lot of other areas of the CIP that need funding, but it cannot be done because of the source of funding. Thank you. Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'll do the early stuff first. So just noting that the Goody project and the Oaks landfill project, this is the last year for that, right? And so we don't anticipate any further investment in those projects.
In the Goody?
I'm sorry, the Oaks landfill and the leachate. Is that
the Oaks landfill leachate pretreatment? Well, with the Goody landfill, that remediation project was fully scoped out, fully appropriated. They're finalizing the passive reuse for that site, so I don't expect much change in that project at this point. Right. The Oaks project, they may find additional things they may have to do at the site beyond this, because that's an active, it's an active, if you will, closed landfill. So things can come up.
And do we ever not have a responsibility there, or is there an end date to that?
Well, I think as regulations change or get tighter over time. Now, the Oaks landfill is a lot newer than the Goody landfill. The Goody landfill had some very significant work that had to be done, but it was under an old regulation regime, which had far less initial environmental work done on it. So it had a lot more to catch up. The Oaks site was closed much later. It had more in place when it closed. Okay. So the hope there is that we don't have that kind of intense work at Oaks that we had at Goody. But with that said, we are responsible for that landfill, going forward. Okay. And another thing that's happened at Oaks, by the way, is there was a solar facility put there. I believe it's the largest solar facility in the county. So we're trying to beneficially reuse or utilize that open site that's there now. So that's a good example of reuse. And there's also consideration of doing a solar project at Goody as well.
Great. Okay, so any future capital cost, we just don't know what they are for that. And it'll come up as...
DEP might have a sense of what's on the horizon, perhaps, on the closed landfill side of things. But I think this project is fairly well defined at this point.
Okay.
Also, if I may, there's money in the operating budget also for ongoing maintenance of the grounds and.
Thank you. Because I was thinking about that. If we're looking about very small changes in the future, would that convert to the operating cost?
Yeah, there's already programs within that.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the new organics facility, I'm very excited about this project. I love this project. I think that we absolutely need to get countywide composting moving, and it's it's frustrating that we are where we are. So the question that I have with this is how soon will we get a briefing on the plan for solid waste?
Thank you so much for that question, Council Vice President Balcom. We, as you know, are working on a plan under the county executive's vision for the future of waste. We did request a full council briefing on this, given the extent of interest and effects across the county. And it has not been put on the full council agenda. But in the meantime, we are hosting open houses on the future of municipal solid waste management in the county. Those begin on Monday. We've got 2 in person and 1 virtual next week, and we encourage council members and the public to attend and engage in this conversation. And we will be presenting, information on how we do things currently and what alternatives are available into the future, and the proposed plan by the county executive for the future of solid waste. We are also providing information to the council members in lieu of the requested full council briefing. We're engaging individually with council members, and also we will be engaging in writing with the council president.
Okay. And so the county executive is ready to make that, your office is ready to make that presentation to the full council?
Yes, we have been ready and have requested that, and I think it would be beneficial for all the council members to hear it together at the same time. I know, we're hearing individual questions from the public and council members, and I think there'd be a benefit to having all of you together to have that conversation.
And then, Mr. Levchenko, you mentioned that this CIP packet does not include any projects that might be included once we see that the next step. Do we have any idea what those projects might be?
Well, and that would depend on where ultimately the council decides on this long-term issue. The executive is actively looking at long haul by truck. There was an RFP that went out last fall that is still under analysis by the executive branch. That is not a capital intensive approach. That would be a contract, an operating contract. If there were to be capital improvements associated, for instance, with the transfer station to improve, for instance, further advanced waste management on the site, that could be a future capital project. We did see the executive put forward something like that last year for planning work, but then he withdrew it. So that would take the form of the CIP. If a decision was made to upgrade and continue with the resource recovery facility, it would depend a little bit on the financing structure for that. When it was first built, that was done through a newly created state entity, the Northeast Maryland Waste Disposal Authority. So that was an arrangement where the debt for that was not on the county books, it was on a third party's books, and then the county had to make debt payment or had to make operating payments over time to that entity. And those payments ultimately were concluded in 2016.
Okay. So thank you. So the expectation then is whatever the proposal is going forward would be a vendor type relationship where it comes from operating and not capital intensive projects. Would that be the?
Well, I think that's the vision we've heard from the executive. But once again, we have not seen a lot of detail on that yet. And I do want to note that the council president did send a letter in January to the executive outlining a number of questions and suggestions for going forward. One of those was, in fact, to hold more public engagement, which you hear they're doing in March. But also a lot more information that the president felt the council needed before it could appropriately review this issue.
Okay, thank you. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the work that you all have done and keeping us briefed and in the loop. We've met a couple times on this. And I do say I agree that we need to have this discussion in full council, because we have to discuss it and talk about what we're going to do. So hopefully that can happen soon. And then I guess from the perspective of, and Chair Glass alluded to this, of the decisions that we have to make today of approving the present CIP presented, I think that we have to go forward with the best guess for the new organics processing facility, because as mentioned, if we will need that regardless of what we're going to do in the future. I mean, the whole point about our future waste management is reducing the amount of waste that we need to process, whether it's from a landfill or the incinerator, and that the composting, the organic matter has always been part of that, and so we'll need that regardless of whether it's at this site, because we have this relationship with the Sugarloaf Citizens Association in terms of getting that allowing that to happen at this site. And just last question, have we even thought about looking at other potential sites?
Thank you for your question, Councilmember Balcom. So one, I just wanted to reiterate what Keith said, that there's no short-term capital improvement projects planned as associated with the county executive's vision on the future of waste. And then also that March 14th or 13th, I believe, the county executive will be announcing his proposed operating budget, which will include the impacts and the rates that you're talking about. But we are also providing information on rate impacts from the different alternatives, both through individual council meetings, through the response to the council president's letter, and then also to the public through the open houses. And then to address your specific question, I was going to turn to my colleague.
Yeah, thanks, Council Vice President. So we have looked at a couple other options if the current yard trim facility is unavailable. And those other options are possible. One of them is using the county's Site 2 property, and we've also looked at some private property. So both of those options would take more time and would be significantly more expensive. So those are not in any way our preferred option, but they do remain available.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I'm going to stay on this theme. So, Mr. Seltzer, you may be still in the hot seat. I think as we're moving forward, having the conversation about the RF and everything, I don't want the new organics processing facility to be a casualty of that conversation and process, because we have not been able to move it forward. And this committee 2 years ago, and thank you, Mr. Lachenko, for linking to the May report from the committee meeting, we very specifically added language to the PDF at that time to the new organics processing facility to say this money should be used for either the location at Dickerson or finding another facility. So I just want to put a finer point on what Councilmember Balcom said, that this committee has very strongly suggested that we keep looking, even if the Sugarloaf area, the Dickerson site is the preferred one, understanding that how that is linked to what we do with the incinerator, that we've waited way too long for a compost facility here in Montgomery County. It's like we have so many residents who are ready to go and put this in place. And so I just encourage us to make sure that anytime we are referring to the new organics processing facility, that we remember, and it's still in the PDF, that the language says the location at Dickerson or another location is viable. If that means you need to come back to us and tell us what that will cost, then we should do that. But I just want to make sure that we haven't closed any doors at this point, because that was 2 years ago we added that language. And here we are now. And residents in Montgomery County have been asking for a compost facility for many, many years. So I wanted to put a finer point on what Councilmember Balcom said and the actions that this committee had taken very explicitly. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Director.
Sorry, thank you, Councilmember Stewart. I appreciate your remarks. I think they're absolutely critical. We will continue our work towards food scraps recycling. It's a key environmental, important for environmental impacts. It's food scraps can be turned into gold that we can use in our gardens and elsewhere in the county. I also did want to mention the work that DEP has undertaken on a pilot for curbside food scrap recycling. And we have a lot of lessons learned from that that will carry us forward and allow us to move forward with this. So we will take back your request and make sure that we're looking at additional facilities as well.
And if I can, the chair allows me one more comment. I do want to say thank you for that pilot and all the team that worked on it. It was excellent, and the information. I live in Tacoma Park. I've been composting for a while, but I went out that day and learned a whole bunch of other stuff about how to compost, even though I've been doing it. So the team is great, and I think that is my point. We are really on the cusp here and have residents who are committed to doing this. So thank you.
We love composting. Thank you, colleagues, for the comments, and just re-upping the theme that both my colleagues noted on Circle 8 on the PDF regarding the organics facility. It does say that this money should be used for building an organics processing facility at other locations in Montgomery County, as well as to consider modifications needed at the transfer station. So appreciate them re-upping this. We certainly need to do more to reduce our waste stream. There is a continued push to make our waste management better, and that also means increasing recycling and increasing composting, as well as, in my view, closing the incinerator. And so all things have to move forward at the same time. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing, and we will certainly continue this conversation in the operating budget. So thank you. I suspect some of you are staying for the next item. So without objection, we will approve item number 2 on the agenda, which is, where are my notes? I'm looking at it right now, which is the Recycling and Resource Management CIP. Next item is the CIP for Conservation of Natural Resources, Stormwater Management. Mr. Lubchenco.
Yeah, well, we have some new folks coming up.
Yep.
DEP did prepare some summary slides covering the scope of work, the MS4 permit, as well as the different projects. I'll just provide a quick summary for the Stormwater Management CIP. It is a pretty significant CIP, and like the Recycling Resource Management, it's got its own dedicated funding source, in this case the Water Quality Protection Fund. So once again, the expenditures and revenues you hear about in this are distinct, separate, do not impact overall county spending affordability with regard to GEO bonds. So once again, we're sort of operating in a closed environment, if you will. It does obviously affect the water quality protection charge going forward, which we talk a lot more about in the operating budget, and what the impacts will be for FY27 and beyond, what the rate, what the charge is looking like, which folks pay as part of their on their property tax bill. So we will see it in more context in the operating budget. But and that's why whatever recommendations are done today, obviously the committee may revisit them later, depending on if they want to make adjustments or make different assumptions for the fund going forward. One of those areas would be to adjust the CIP, just like you could adjust the operating budget. But with that said, it is about a $245 million program. It's up a little bit from the amended CIP. Much of it is intended to support DEP's efforts to meet its NPDES MS4 permit, and primarily the acreage requirement, the impervious area restoration requirement in that, which is 1,814 acres over a 5-year period. We are in a bit of a holding pattern now because the existing permit is winding down, and we have MDE hopefully moving forward soon to develop a draft permit this year, and that will guide substantially where the CIP goes in the future, how big it has to be, the kind of work that's assumed in it, and so forth. Like I said, we're in a bit of a holding pattern with that, and DEP can talk a little bit more about that. With that, I think I'll turn it over to DEP to let us walk through, and I think that will help generate some questions and issues you may have going forward.
Let's do it.
Thank you very much. I would like to turn to my colleague, Amy Stevens, who is the chief of our Watershed Restoration Division. And also, just because we have change of staff here, I've also wanted to introduce Stan Edwards, who's the chief of our Climate, Energy, and Compliance Division, or Energy, Climate, and Compliance Division. Amy, over to you.
And just a note, I have control of the slide deck, so Amy, when you want to switch slides, let me know.
All right, thank you very much. Amy Stevens with DEP. I apologize in advance for coughing. I'm getting over a cold, so I have a potential of coughing. So I think the best thing to do is to get into the presentation because it walks through a lot of the work that's in this packet and kind of alludes to what Keith had just said. So if you want to bring it up, Keith.
It's coming up.
Is it coming up? There it is. Okay. You go ahead and advance to the next. So just real quick, this is our MS4 program. This is to represent Montgomery County. In terms of, you can see Western Montgomery County and all the efforts that go into the MS4. A lot of the work is funded through our capital program and through our operating program. And of course, we'll be bringing that back in March. But, it covers a variety of work. The environmental restoration work is what we're going to be focusing on with the CIP. Go ahead, next. These are our accomplishments as of fiscal year 25. It was included in our FY25 annual report. We're making great progress. We're on target with all of our accomplishments in the MS4 permit. We are meeting all of the requirements, and we are poised to meet all of the requirements to satisfy the permit by November 4th, 2026, when this particular permit ends. We do anticipate that it will be administratively continued. We don't think MDE will be ready and will have a final issuance to us. But again, we will continue to sustain all this work. Next slide. So the work we do is vast in terms of the types of projects, but just so you're aware in comparison, when you're looking at this slide, this gives you a representation of the pollutant removal, impervious surface restoration credit that you get from each type of practice that we implement, from pond retrofits to stream restoration to green streets, green infrastructure, and the cost. And so depending on the practice, we get different kinds of pollutant removal. Some target more of the pollutants like nitrogen and phosphorus. Some target sediment. In particular, stream restoration is one of the primary mechanisms with which we use to target sediment. So when we're talking about the different kinds of practices, I just want to allude back to this when you're thinking about how we're meeting all of our requirements, because in some watersheds we have sediment reduction requirements, some watersheds we have nutrient reduction requirements. And so the formula will change depending on where we have those requirements. Okay, next slide. We are working very hard towards meeting our next permit. And so this is all the work that we actually have, mostly in construction at this moment. We have a lot of projects in construction. This particular work on this slide is funded through the Stormwater Management Retrofit Countywide PDF. So this is our stream restoration and green infrastructure and some pond retrofits because it's funded from state revolving fund loans. So this work will most likely wrap up in time. Some of these projects will continue a little longer because they're in design, but we anticipate they all will wrap up within the next year. Okay, next slide. And so these are our projects that are also in design and mostly in construction for our stormwater management facility major structural repair. These are ponds. They're being retrofitted and improved. In a lot of cases, the work is to improve the control structure, to improve the pipe that conveys the water, out of the pond, to improve any compliance that's needed to bring it up to safety standards. Those are all the things that we do in addition to creating additional water quality retrofit if we can. And again, this work is expected to be completed in this next year in order to be able to achieve our MS4 permit. Now, not all this work is for MS4. Like, for example, the Wheaton Branch Dam overtopping, that's a dam safety protection measure that we're doing. And we're not getting any MS4 credit for that, but that is necessary and required by Maryland Department of the Environment. Okay, next slide. And then for this particular permit, we deployed the pay-for-performance method of contracting, which is a full delivery. Essentially, we put all the risk on the contractors to do this work, deliver it 100% to us, and meeting the credit requirements that we stipulated in the contract. They are finishing up. In fact, there's a supplemental request for particularly for these that we'll get to in a later session, but they are working very, very fast around the county, and a lot of their projects are actually coming to completion, and they're rapidly submitting their crediting requirements to us, and we are close to accepting a lot of that work. We find this to be a beneficial method of contracting because it does put all the risk on the contractors to complete the work within the time frame. We do monitor their work. We meet with them regularly. We have staff on site, but they are required to complete the work from design through permitting, outreach to the community on their own before they receive any payment from us. So payment comes at the end. Okay, next slide. And so we also do work with Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, Montgomery Parks. They are doing a number of stream restoration projects in the park systems that the Water Quality Protection Charge funds, and this work goes towards the county's MS4 permit. This is a cooperative agreement we have with them. Next slide. All right, so the next permit. Again, we anticipate as early as 2027. That can be that's the entire year. I really don't know when they're going to submit it to us. We do know that we will have the ongoing implementation requirements, as you see in that box on my left. But there are going to be new requirements that they're hinting at that we're seeing in some of the permits that they're issuing to the smaller municipalities, to the State Highway Administration. And some of those requirements we will have to begin planning for, but until we have issued that permit is issued to us, we are thinking about them, but we are not necessarily working towards implementation for them. So we're kind of in a thought process of how to deal with thermal impacts, for example. That's looking at reducing focusing on cold water streams and reducing the impacts to those streams. We have green infrastructure planning that we've done green infrastructure for many years, but this permit is then requiring a planning element. And they want us to focus in environmental justice areas of the county, particularly as related to the state, as the state defines it. So again, we will be looking at that and will likely return in future capital years with that plan once the permit's issued. Next slide. So this is our facility planning. Again, that's where we do all our planning, regular monitoring trying to meet our pollutant reduction requirements, watershed assessments, monitoring. But we also have some upcoming projects looking at reforestation opportunities, looking at green infrastructure project identification, and of course, planning for the next permit. Next slide. And stream restoration is always a topic. I know you get a lot of questions about it. This is generally all the metrics that go into selecting a project. We look at a lot of factors. And we look at all of these, and just about everyone on our team is involved, from the engineers to the biologists to the arborists to planners to plant specialists. I mean, the whole team, comes into play when we think about this. We work with property owners, we consider equity, we definitely consider design costs and access. There's a lot of information that goes into selecting a project. Next slide. We do have a cooperative agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers, and we're working on 2 projects in Belpre Stream in Lamberton. This has been in works for a long time. It takes a long time to work with the Army Corps. We're still in the feasibility stage, but we hope to advance it to design. This is a pretty good, right now we're in a 50-50 cost share agreement. We will be in a 65-35 cost share agreement where we'll pay 35%, so it is a cost-effective way to do work. But it does take a long time. Next slide. Now we have begun planning for the next permit. Although we don't have a target, we know there are lots of projects that we have to get moving in order to be able to achieve. 5 years is a short amount of time. So we've started planning. This CIP includes projects that we're completing and projects that we're going to be starting. These are the projects that will be starting around the county. You can see the estimated start date. This is staggered over the years in order to be able to meet the completion date, which we're targeting probably around FY31, 32, depending on when the permit gets issued. Next slide, please. We are also targeting green infrastructure projects, again, in this planning. We are looking at doing work in these areas. Some will go into construction as early as FY27 that we're currently designing right now. Others we're starting with design. We will be looking at reforestation, like I said, and we believe we're going to continue with the pay-for-performance model. We think it's been successful, and we'll get these project credits in and see how it works. But I think it's a good joint effort with to deliver projects, to take away the risk from the county in order to deliver, but also to get expertise from consultants that are very good at what they do. Next slide, please. And again, we have a lot of pond repair. I mean, this is aging infrastructure, really, what you're looking at here. These are our assets that we must maintain, but we do try to improve the water quality treatment. Some of these things, were built much earlier, 80s, 90s. They were built with different standards. We're bringing them up to more current standards. So we have a lot of projects. We have the responsibility for doing this maintenance through our easement and maintenance agreements we hold with the communities. Most of these are all privately owned ponds. They're not on public land. But we do have that responsibility in our easements and covenants. So we base these based on our inspections, and we use criticality factors in order to determine which ponds need to be repaired. We will always be bringing these forward in this particular CIP. Aging infrastructure always needs to be repaired. All right, next slide, please. And one thing that we're working on a lot now is using this continuous monitoring and adaptive control. Essentially what this does is it uses the forecast to moderate the level of the water in order to store more water to allow for more treatment, because the longer the water is stored, the more pollutants will settle. And so this is the technology. You can see the equipment up there. That's what it looks like. It uses, of course, cloud-based software, and it's automated, and it's programmed, and it's actually quite a cost-effective way to get water quality treatment. That actuated valve there in red is what's being controlled, and it does have a control panel. You can manually control, like we could go on site and manually control, but we right now, most of them are programmed. So next slide, please. This is where we have projects. We've got 4 already installed. We've found them to be beneficial, so we're moving forward with 2 more. And we will likely we're trying to do about 2 projects a year to put into design using these kinds of equipment. Wait, next slide, please. And the last 2 slides are just projects we've had, PDFs that we've had in place for a while. We're coming close to the Wheaton Regional Dam flooding mitigation. It is tied to the bridge project, but we hope to complete construction in 2028. And next slide. And lastly, we have this project in place. It's rather new. It is a way for us to do smaller work to extend the life of the assets that we're responsible for maintaining. So it's mostly dredging, a lot of slip lining of pipes where we're actually using, the technology in order to line the pipes rather than doing the excavation, because excavation is very disruptive to communities and can be quite costly. And then we're standing up a stream restoration maintenance program so that we can do small spot repairs, continue to protect the stream banks and the infrastructure, and also the stream habitat. And I believe that is the last slide for me. Yeah. Okay, so that is our program, and that is what you see in our packet. And I welcome any questions you might have.
Great. Well, thank you very much for walking us through that, Ms. Stevens. Over the last 2 CIPs, this committee has engaged with you a lot about the MS4 permit and have encouraged more upstream work. Can you share with us what the status is on shifting some of those funds from the stream water management to more visible projects that are literally on the street level in the communities?
Absolutely. We have, as you saw on one of the earlier slides, we have a lot of upland BMP work already programmed. We try to balance it. But if you go back to that pollutant removal and cost slide, you'll see the cost difference between a stream restoration, which is approximately $80,000 per impervious acre, versus an upland green infrastructure, which is $250,000 per impervious acre.
Say that one more time.
The green infrastructure is $250,000 per impervious acre. So those projects compared to 80,000, yeah. So they are expensive, and they don't treat nearly as much in terms of the amount of acreage. So while we do have it programmed in, we are trying to be balancing the cost effectiveness. So we try to ensure we have upland green infrastructure, we have pond retrofits, along with stream restoration. We're trying to add reforestation, which is another out-of-stream technique, which we think is very important, and we want to try to do more of.
So thank you for sharing the dollars and cents there, that more of the upstream work is 3 times as much per acre. But the reality is the state mandates us to remediate a certain number of acres, right?
That's correct.
And what's that acreage again? I know it was in your slide, but
in this permit, it's 18,014 impervious acres.
What happened?
1,814 impervious acres. Thank you,
well, there goes the budget. So 1,800.
Yes.
What happens if we fail to meet the state's requirement?
Well, we're not going to fail. But if we were, I
appreciate the hypothetical, yes.
That's right. We are working very hard to make that deadline up. We could be put into a consent decree like we were in 2018, and then that would probably come with a fine. Last time we had a consent decree, we negotiated doing a restoration project as opposed to just paying outright the fine, and MDE accepted that. But if we don't meet that requirement, we could get a consent decree. Prince George's County didn't meet the requirement, they got a consent decree too.
So the state is punitive in if we don't fulfill those obligations.
That's
and
correct.
I should say, if the last time this happened was 2018, that was under a Republican governor who enforced that environmental regulation. So, other question basically is about the timeline moving forward, and Mr. Lovchenko alluded to this. The MS4 permits are set to be updated, and that's next year. How can we either get ahead of some of that or help inform what those regulations might be, so that, quite frankly, from my perspective, but I think it's shared by my colleagues, we are able to do some more upstream, and so that they don't necessarily look at acreage alone, but other qualities.
Yeah, we work very closely with MDE, and we have been advocating that MDE consider all the other factors that we have in our MS4 permit, including operation and maintenance, which is a huge part of what we do and a huge expense for us. And we're trying to get MDE to recognize that if they want more upland work, they have to lower the requirement, because we can't achieve it based on, if you saw the amount of credit that we get from things like stream restoration, in particular, means that that's always going to be a tool we will lean on in order to satisfy a large requirement. If they lower the requirement, recognizing things like operation and maintenance, innovation, trying to target practices in underserved communities, that other factors will lead to how we design our restoration. And as long as we're advancing and progressing, they don't need as high of a stringent. The other requirement, the other thing and the factor here that we are working with MD to understand is, what is the Bay program doing? There's a new requirement for 2030. They haven't really come out with any metrics yet. So we're uncertain. The 2025, Maryland met 2025 requirements. Now we're going to have 2030 requirements. The Bay program has to come back and tell Maryland what it needs to do. And until then, there shouldn't be this urgency to continue advanced restoration. Montgomery County has been doing it since 2001 in our 2001 permit. I mean, we have many years of experience. We have over 7,000 impervious acres restored. We're not alone. Other counties are doing that as well, but we try to work with MDE to make them recognize how far we've come and that they don't have to keep putting such a huge requirement on us, because it is quite an expensive effort. Last time we talked to MD about this, the state itself has spent about $1 billion on this effort. Not Montgomery County, of course, but this has just been a tremendous effort that the state has put forward. Mm-hmm. MDE is a little receptive to that. Haven't really quite come back and told us that yes, they agree we can reduce the requirements. But we're going to keep working with them on it, and we'll keep designing based on the program we have. We think this is a very great formula between pond retrofit, stream restoration, green infrastructure, adding reforestation, using techniques like pay for performance and the CMAQ retrofits, that continuous monitoring. So we think that this is the right formula, and we believe we're going to continue pushing it, and we'll talk to the state about our practical requirements. But we haven't started those negotiations because they really haven't told us what their schedule is.
Appreciate all of that. I'll share with my colleagues, perhaps we as a committee, if there's consensus, maybe write a letter to MDE and perhaps to our state delegation as well, and members of the committee, saying that as this process is unfolding, we encourage more creative thinking to allow us with being more flexible in how we do this work. Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
Joseph, did you want to say something?
Yeah,
Jump in?
Chair Glass,
sorry.
if you don't mind, I wanted to say I appreciate your thoughts on maybe helping to inform that discussion with the state. I think maybe as part of that, I think one thing to keep in mind if you're helping to advocate is that there needs to be a balance with us obviously wanting to do as much work as we can, but balancing that with affordability. And that has to be part of the conversation. We can, we all want to limit how much we increase rates every year, and hopefully, getting them to appreciate those constraints, I think, is an important part of the conversation.
Yeah, important consideration during a budget discussion. Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Following up on that, one of the questions I had is, Are there cost-sharing opportunities as we are doing this projects, depending on, where they are, or are we pretty much doing them on our own?
I'm trying to cost share with like businesses, private entities. Is that what you're thinking?
Property owners,
Private property owners. Most of the time when we engage a private property owner to do work on their property, the first question they ask us about is maintenance. Who's going to maintain it? So generally, if we want to gain access to their property, the best incentive we can come up with is to say we're gonna build it, design it, build it, and maintain it, and and that allows us to gain access. If they pay the Water Quality Protection Fund based on the amount of impervious surface on their property, and they could use that as an incentive to build on their own, but they don't find that to be enough of an incentive. We try very hard to work with congregations to try to do more work on their properties. We bring them the other programs we have, like Rainscapes and Tree Montgomery. But we often find that if we really want to make a difference on the property, we have to ask them if we can use their property to build the practice. Sorry. I don't know what, I can't read her scribble.
That's okay.
Assists are okay.
I was trying not to be put on the spot, but I'm sorry, I have horrible handwriting.
Yeah.
Vicky, I just want to also note that we actually proactively reach out for grants, and we actually proactively go out for MDE low interest loans. So these projects, the majority of them are funded by 1% MDE loans rather than the traditional 5% revenue bonds.
Great, thank you. But that's also very helpful to understand when you're working with private property owners, and I get it. That was really helpful. One other thing I was thinking of, given the excellent, if you want to say, tour or that you gave us on stream restoration, and given that there are elections coming up and we will have new council members, I just want to say that I think as part of new council member onboarding and thinking about the education, that would be really helpful to do that. I found that is, over the last few years, we've had many different excursions, I guess, and to learn more about the work of our different departments. And I will say that was incredibly helpful in understanding the work you do and how to be thinking about this budget. So thank you.
Absolutely. We're always happy to bring you out to see our projects. We'll certainly do that.
Councilmember Balcom.
Yes, thank you. Excellent presentation. Just a couple questions. So what is the lifespan of a stormwater management pond?
It depends on what aspects you're thinking of. We dredge ponds to extend its storage abilities. So usually we start dredging about 50% full, and I can't give an actual range of years for when that is. Concrete, if we have metal components of the structure that has a 30-year lifespan, and then we have to replace it. If we put concrete in, it lasts longer than 50 years. We maintain our VMPs so that they will last forever. Really, they need to stay there. They need to be able to continue to do their function. The green infrastructure practices, we also maintain those so that they'll stay. But those that are in the roadway get a lot of impacts, vegetation, the media. So we will find we have to replace components of it. I actually don't know off the top of my head the lifespan.
I just noticed when one of the lists they had like Plumgar and Fountain Hills in Germantown, two completely different ages of those communities. So that's what brought the question.
Right, but they were built probably 20 to 30 years ago or started in design, and they could have metal components. I don't know those off the top of my head, but if they do have metal, we have to replace them.
Yep.
If they were built with, so we also look at this for retrofit. So not always is it completely replacing the infrastructure, but it is to do improvements in water quality. So sometimes based on their design era, we might say, we can improve this. That's why we go in.
And the retrofit projects, is that the one where you said you try to do 2 new ones a year?
No, that's with the CMAC installations. Yeah.
Okay, and how many years out is that if you do 2 a year? I mean, how many are you thinking that we'll end up doing?
We are programming 2 a year of the CIP, so FY 27 to 32.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
And then one last question. For the projects that are deep into the communities, the various HOAs, what is your process for letting the community know that this work is being done?
We always work with the HOA and the board. We notify all the residents within the vicinity of the project. We will hold on-site meetings if they want to be a part of that. We have held in-person meetings. Sometimes we don't get a lot of people that come to that. We can use social media methods to communicate to them. So that's generally and it's really dependent upon the community. If they're more active, we'll be more active with them.
All right, good, thanks.
Thank you for this conversation. Clearly, it's going to be a continued process, and I do appreciate the sentiments that Councilmember Stewart noted. As this body changes over, there will continue to be questions and education, and those on-site visits help tremendously. But Mr. Levchenko, if we could talk after about a committee letter to MDE and bringing in other stakeholders, and we'll consult you as we work through that. But without objections, we will adopt this CIP.
I have one other note.
Okay.
There are 2 projects that Amy did not touch on, which has to do with the flood management program.
Okay.
And there's 2 projects. One is the planning element, and the other is a placeholder project for future spending for retrofit work. Stan Edwards is here, and he can walk us through briefly the elements of those 2 projects, and I think that'll be very helpful for you.
Apologies, Mr. Edwards. You're not chopped liver. It's okay.
Thank you. I'm Stan Edwards. I'm the Chief of the Division of Energy, Climate, and Compliance in DEP. And I have a very few brief slides. They're not as full of pictures as Amy's nice slides, but so Keith, you can skip, go to the first slide. So just a reminder of the goals of our comprehensive flood management planning process. We're trying to understand our current and future flood risk by what's called hydraulic and hydraulic modeling. We want to understand and modify programs, policies, communications, and any other government activities that might have some relationship to flooding. And we want to ensure that racial equity and social justice are incorporated as we go through this work. Next slide, please. A reminder that while DEP is really doing the project management of this has been a comprehensive effort with a lot of other agencies, and they've been so generous in giving time. And we have a working group that meets twice a month to go through the process and debate issues. And so we couldn't have done this work without them, and they'll be critical partners going forward. So we're in the flood modeling stage now. Here's the schedule of watersheds. We've completed Sligo Creek. We're working almost done with Lower and Middle Rock Creek. One thing I should point out, Sligo Creek was our pilot watershed. It's about 6,600 acres. The 2 Rock Creek watersheds are about 22,000 acres, so we're greatly expanding the area that we're modeling. The total will be about 101,000 acres when we're all done with these 11 watersheds, and you can see the schedule there. Next slide, please. So the models will show flood risk of a 10-year, a 100-year, and a 500-year storm. You're probably familiar with those terms. That doesn't mean we get a 500-year storm every 500 years. It's a probability of a certain amount of rainfall at a given time. We have a lot of detail about that on our website for folks who want to learn more about it. Our models are based on rainfall projections for 2020, 2050, and 2100. We're talking about long-term infrastructure. Ms. Stevens mentioned things like storm ponds or infrastructure that will last for a lifetime, basically. And so we're planning out for those long-term conditions. And all the model results will be on the Flood Risk Explorer, which is on the county's flooding webpage, and the website is there. It's montgomerycountymd.gov/flooding. And we currently have the Sligo Creek results up. Again, we should have the Rock Creek results up in, I'm hoping, in March. And I won't open the website now, but we are starting to have a lot of public meetings, and taking a tour around that website is and around the flood model is very enlightening for folks. Next slide, please. The last part of the watershed flood modeling process is to start to identify potential CIP projects. And so we're in that stage right now with Sligo Creek. We're prioritizing projects based on 4 different factors. We're trying to reduce deep flooding, flooding around critical facilities in multifamily buildings, and also in socially vulnerable areas. So when we prioritize projects, we've got, for Sligo Creek and all the watersheds, we break it down into what are called catchment areas, sort of individual sub-basins, and identify the most significant problem areas, and then develop conceptual projects to solve those. And in order to prioritize those projects, we're using those factors. And then we'll go on to a feasibility study for the most highly prioritized projects to move into the design stage before detailed design and implementation of the projects. Our initial estimates of Sligo Creek to help mitigate flooding, not prevent flooding, but mitigate flooding, we have a potential for hundreds of millions of dollars of projects. And again, that's 6,600 acres out of 101,000. So we're going to have to pick the projects that have the most impact, and that's why we're going through this prioritization process. Because we won't be able to completely eliminate flooding through projects, programs and policies are going to be really important. So I just wanted to highlight a few things we're going to be working on here in the next couple of years. First, outreach engagement to our community is most critical. We're working through a lot of advocacy groups and community associations. We want to work with underserved communities and really make sure they understand what their flood risk would be and things they can do about it. Multifamily properties that are identified as higher risk are a real focus for our communications. Next slide. We're looking at a couple of key programs. We would like to develop a property owner assistance program, both some technical guidance and some financial help to property owners, because much of the flooding we're seeing is relatively low-level flooding, but it can be very damaging to an individual property. If there are basement floods, for example, that might be tens of thousands of dollars of repairs, and if they can make small improvements to prevent water from infiltrating into their property, then that could save a lot of trouble there for them and cost. We also would like to participate in what's called the community rating system, which is part of the National Flood Insurance Program. And if we can demonstrate to FEMA that we are pursuing a number of different activities related to flooding, that will actually lower flood insurance premiums for anybody in Montgomery County who has flood insurance, and anybody in Montgomery County who owns property is eligible to get flood insurance. And it's relatively inexpensive for those folks outside of a FEMA floodplain relative to the damages you might incur from flooding. So that's another area we'll highlight in our communications, is to investigate flood insurance programs. And then finally, we want to look at policies, and this is critically important. Building codes, I think, are the number one thing that we can look at to try to make buildings more impervious to flooding. While that might cost a little more at the outset to build a building to make it more impervious to flooding, in the long term, that will save a lot of money and aggravation for people. Want to look at planning and development review processes. A lot of those are based on looking at things like building codes and making sure they're implemented when we do master plans and review individual development plans. And then real estate disclosures, we think that's an area where we could also do some work. There's a bill at the General Assembly now that's talking about this. What sort of information should you provide if you're selling a home about flooding or flooding potential? And we think that's an area that we would like to explore going forward. So those are my slides. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. I know going back to the flooding maps at the beginning, found that very insightful, and look forward to the other mapping that will be done, because what was done on Sligo, very helpful, particularly our communities, and look forward to seeing the other communities that exist as well. I don't know if anyone else has any comments? Yep.
I just want to say thank you to this, and I know there's a lot of interest in my neck of the woods on the modeling and everything, and I think this is also a great opportunity to also educate people on the distinction between stormwater and flooding. The two things lots of times get intertangled, and particularly when people are talking about building in our community and thinking about other things that change, I think lots of times there's a confusion over what's stormwater and what flooding, and I think this modeling that you're doing and outreach is a real opportunity to talk to people and educate them about how we deal with both of them in the county, and I just appreciate this work. So just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I agree, it's so important. So what about the insurance implications of the modeling? And if an area is rated highly probable, how does that impact insurance?
Yeah, I think we often get asked that question. And I think one sector of industry, if you'll call it, that knows more about flooding than we do, it's the insurance sector. They are on top of this because we've seen in places like Florida and California where they have not just flooding but other hazards, they are pulling out of the market of providing insurance. And so we think that by providing information to people and helping them take the proper steps to protect their property, we're actually going to prevent issues with insurance. I mentioned the National Flood Insurance Program, the community rating system. The FEMA recognizes that if you take steps, including flood modeling and letting people know that what their flood risk is, they will lower your insurance premiums for flood insurance, or our flood insurance premiums will be lowered. So we think information is powerful and can help prevent issues with insurance. A normal homeowner's insurance doesn't cover flooding anyway. So being able to provide information to people so that they can take the step to get flood insurance, I think will make regular homeowner insurers more comfortable because they won't get into issues about should we cover this, because they won't cover flooding.
Thank you. And I think that this is another area where communication to the homeowners is critical, and so let us know as we move forward how that'll happen. But I really appreciate your work on this. Thank you.
Excellent. So with that, without objection, we'll approve that item as well.
Yeah, and just one element in this package, there is the supplemental appropriation, an amendment that Ms. Stevens mentioned to recognize the acceleration of some of the pay-for-performance projects. So that supplemental was embedded in this packet, but it will go to action prior to the full CIP. We'll bring that back to the council for full action soon.
Yes, and for those who are following the packet, that is what was the last item in the packet, but relevant to this conversation. Correct. Very good. Thank you. So without objection, we'll approve that. We'll just take that up right now. So
right.
Thank you, Mr.
The last item we have today is the storm drain CIP, and we purposely batch it with the stormwater management because of the relationship. And certainly one of the relationships here you just heard with the flooding. Some of the solutions they may come up with may be to provide additional resources for some of the storm drain work. So that's certainly one element. And the committee may recall that the storm drain CIP the last 4 to 6 years, we've actually, the council has supported significant increases in some of these systemic projects in here because we'd heard from executive branch staff that there were backlogs, that they weren't being as proactive as they would like to be. So several of these projects, we had the level of effort substantially increased some years back. And those numbers are still reflected in what you see today. So what we're seeing in this CIP is more marginal, but I didn't want to lose the fact that it had been increased a few years ago so that it's not a forgotten CIP. But with that, we have some new folks up at the table. I'm going to set up some slides they have to walk us through their
Fantastic.
CIP.
Thank you to DEP for their presentations, and welcome DOT.
Good afternoon. Emma Willanen, Deputy Director for the Department of Transportation. With me here today is Dan Sheridan. Dan used to manage this program. He's in a transitional stage now. Dan was recently promoted to our new position of Chief Engineer. Behind us here is Dara Soom, recently hired into Dan's former job as Chief of the Planning and Design Section. He'll be taking over the program in the near future, so they're going through a transition stage.
Congratulations.
Just wanted to echo with what Keith has said. We appreciate the council's increases that have been provided to this program as of late, the last few years. I think our projects in the storm drain domain are hitting a sweet spot right now for the level of funding. There's no backlogs in the program. We're more or less balanced with the rate that the work comes in, our workload, our balances. We've seen to find that sweet spot in the program right now. We have a presentation. I'll defer to the committee if you choose to want us to go through it. Dan can do the quick version, the long version, whatever you prefer to touch on those projects. We realize we're the last ones
It's
on the
okay.
agenda.
You created the PowerPoint, so I want to honor that, but if you want to walk through it, do the quick version, that would be great.
Okay, I'll start with the quick version. Again, I'm Dan Sheridan, and we'll wait for the slides to come up. But again, Dara is new to the county, but stepping into the role that I had before. And if you keep going to a couple slides, Keith. So basically, we have 4 levels of effort projects that make up our storm drain, and I'll go through them quickly. First one is our facility planning, storm drain facility planning, and we do our drainage assistant requests through that. This is a timeline that shows how many requests we get per year. Part of this, the last couple of years, we're seeing a little bit of leveling off. I think that's related to 2 things. Again, that was the increase in funding a few years ago, where we doubled the amount of fund, essentially doubled the amount of funding in all of these programs. And the second thing is it's been a little bit of a drought lately. So you can see with these spikes are directly related to the big storms. And if you remember, a couple we had last July. So again, FY26 is going to be higher than FY25. So that's that. Next slide, please, Keith. So I'm just going to run through a couple of examples and of a storm drain improvement here, and touching on the stormwater management. As Keith said, we work very closely with our DEP colleagues. This is Bucknell in Wheaton. The slide on the left, you see erosion from basically a point source coming off the road. This project, we cut back this dead end street. We removed impervious area from the street and then put it to these 2 inlets to level out the flow, so it goes a lot slower. Next slide, please. It's another one of the same. Again, we put in a bioretention in Bucknell, again, getting the water quality credits. Next slide, please. This is, again, up in, this is Gay Fields up near northwest off of Lay Hill. Basically, water flowing under the road in a culvert, put it to a grass swale, reducing flooding on adjacent properties. Next slide. Here we are in Wheaton, Forest Glen area, installing some inlets, preventing water from flowing across the street. Next slide. Just a small pipe improvement. Pipe was needed replaced, and then added the sidewalk in and improved the swale. Kerry Court, this one's pretty interesting in that you see the pipe is obviously, the storm drain pipes always fail, but the diagonal pipe going through there is a sanitary main. This is a small one for a neighborhood, but protecting that, these 2 types of infrastructures also go together. The sanitary is usually run with the storm drain. So again, doing these repairs has multiple benefits. Next slide. This is a stream outfall repair and stream restoration. Next slide. Another stream restoration type up in Olney. Again, this one is Garrett Park Road, so the corner of Garrett Park, Wheaton, and Kensington. It's hard to tell in the picture on the left, but major failure there. We actually removed, it's a 54-inch pipe, removed many sections and did the step pool and stream restoration that leads right into the main branch of Rock Creek. Next slide. Next, we can just go through this. Another part of our program is our storm drain culvert replacement. The next slides will show a couple. This is where all the projects are occurring by color by year. So I think they're about 18, 19 per year they're doing. And the next slides will show some example of just, replacing existing infrastructure. Amy mentioned metal. So we have a lot of corrugated metal pipes out there. We have those rust over time. And so this is replacing with reinforced concrete pipe in another example on the next slide. Again, it's hard to see on the side on the left, but there's a sinkhole forming in the road. So again, a corrugated metal pipe being replaced with concrete pipes. And we don't have any standalones from this project program, but any questions?
Thank you for the quick version. That was great. And in this budget, just share with us what the changes, what the proposed changes not only are, but what the impacts are in the community.
So primarily, their level of effort projects. The true addition to them is the addition of FY 31 and 32 to the program. There was one project that we didn't touch on. I don't know, Keith, if we're going to do that separately, the River Falls community. We received the grant to do some evaluation work. It led to design. The design work will be wrapping up after 27. There is no additional funding for implementation construction. That will be considered in future capital budgets, but we are carrying forward the same level of effort funding for the approved 26 version in the 27 and beyond.
And let me ask one last question. As we get more torrential rainfall, how is it affecting these programs and future projects?
So that's where we see the spike in complaints, right? That's where it is, and it's exposing more weaknesses, if you will, in the system, and that's how we find out about them. One of the main ways we find out about them, but we also work with other partners to find out about them. So it's just putting more pressure on the system.
The water's putting more pressure on the system.
Well, the torrential
we're putting more pressure on each other.
The torrential rainfall is putting more pressure on us.
Okay, yes.
Well,
Fair
I
point.
think in the extreme and more intense rain events was really the impetus for the flood management program that you heard about earlier.
Correct.
And to the degree funds become available to provide some capital work, some of it may appear in the storm drain CIP for select projects. The River Falls example you heard about, that was also to deal with some flooding issues in that area. Like we heard, there's not funding to move forward with construction, but I think there were some lessons learned in the work done, or the design, the planning work done there, to identify how you would address issues like that, what the downstream impacts are, how broad you have to be with some of this work. So that's all informing the flood management issue going forward.
Makes sense.
And the other thing I did want to mention, there is one change in the storm drain culvert replacement project. Some dollars are moving from the operating budget into the CIP. So it's not a net increase or hit on the fund, but it is a change in how it's reflected. So moving from the operating to the CIP. So you do see an increase in that project in the CIP.
Noted. Thank you for highlighting that. Not having any other questions, thank you for this presentation. We'll support this without objection. And that brings us to a conclusion for the environment portion of the T&E Committee CIP. So thank you everybody, WSSC who's already left the building, DEP, DOT, and then Mr. Levchenko, if we can talk offline about a committee letter to MDE so that we can help shape the MS4 policy moving forward. Great. Thank you very much, everybody. We're adjourned.